Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new solo lane tier list. Today we're doing just a tier list for solo lane, obviously, as the title says, and we are going to be ranking all of these characters in different tiers based on kind of laning phase, overall strength, viability, how early or like late can you pick it in a draft, kind of a multitude of those factors. As you see here in the God pool, I've got a couple of characters I think are just non-viable really in any circumstance in solo. The rest of these are definitely somewhat a stretch at times. I'm going to try to be very clear on that when that's the case. I'm not ranking aspects separately. I will just rank the highest version and tell you whether to go aspect or not. And yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of characters here, so let's just like get started. So Ares. By the way, our tiers are C tier. You know what? I should probably add a tier. Why don't we add a tier? This is going to be our undecided because this is where we're pulling from. I figured that this was the easiest way to do it. This is where we're pulling from. But let me add a tier. This was add a category below. This is going to be our C tier. So C tier is just like trash. B tier is like niche, not really too good. A tier is average. A plus is better than average. S is the best. So Ares Solo, we're going to put in the A tier. Why? So as a Guardian, you are going to typically be going a defensive starter in solo, like a War Flag, which means your lanes are generally designed to be losing. It is not really a carry type of playstyle, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But when you pick an Ares solo, you're kind of expecting a little bit of help in the game to get to the point that you're strong. And for a role that is supposed to be pretty self sufficient, relying on help is not the best thing in the world. That being said, the amount of value this pick brings from a team fighting POV is so powerful that it makes him one of the best gods in the game. So like when you kind of average out the lows and the highs, I think A tier is a pretty solid spot for Ares solo. Cerberus, I'm going to put in the B tier. I think I'm debating on C though. This one is tough. I'm probably going to put him in C tier, honestly, to kind of make a point. I know this looks a little bit harsh, but I really think this character is garbage. His big problem is that anti-heal as a function is obviously not very strong in this game anymore, and his passive was kind of the anti-heal passive. With that being neutralized, this character fundamentally just has zero purpose in the game. He doesn't make any sense as a solo laner because his DPS is too low typically, paired with the lower, and lack of anti-heal that he has. You go into these sustain builds, you kind of just lose trades. You go into a more standard build, you kind of just lose trades. He doesn't do phenomenal into really any type of pick right now. Again, his better matchups were because he could absorb so much anti-heal with like an On-Crush in the past. That just doesn't really exist. I don't think there's a lot of reason to play this character. I like him more in support than in solo. But even then, I don't like him as much. I think he uses his pressure better in support because he doesn't need to farm. He can just fight. But yeah, in solo lane, I think this pick is virtually dead. Cabrakan, we're going to put into probably A plus tier. So the thing with Cabrakan that's a bit weird right now is his first item is a bit up in the air, and that is a huge deal for solo because it really does, obviously set the tone for your role. And it was always Pendulum on this character or Devos. Now that Pendulum is worse and Devos isn't bad, but like the lash builds are a little bit weaker, the Devos value up front is not as high. You also have this issue where like rocks used to get 12 stacks off rocks when it was evolved. Now you're not getting that. So there's a couple of like little things affecting a Devos build kind of through time. Cab is also a character that can go Axe or go Bluestone, but right now we're in an Axe favored meta from a starter item perspective. So that kind of hurts Cab. I mean, it's mostly like neutral, but it kind of hurts him a little bit. I say all this to say his CC is great, his team fight's great. His laning phase is still generally pretty good, but it used to be completely broken. I think it's definitely taken a step back, and he's now an A+, very strong solo lane pick. Chaac, I'm going to put in the A tier. I think this character is just a market step down from some of the top performers right now. He got a couple nerfs recently, which affected his 1 cooldown and his 2 damage. And I believe maybe also his 1 damage, but those 2 nerfs definitely had a really big impact on the character. He also had an issue where his 2 was giving too many prots, so that got fixed as well. And those things kind of in junction just made this character's laning phase weaker, his farm speed weaker. He's still very easy. His team fights are still very good from the sense that you can just kind of, throw your ultimate out and things will kind of go okay. But in terms of like actual value, I think he's quite average, and I don't think he's extremely exceptional right now. Cupid solo, another average one. Now, you might see this and be a bit surprised. I typically am not rushing to rank backliners super high, and you're going to see that as generally a pretty thematic, consistent thing in this tier list. And I'll explain more of that as we go. But with Cupid, you have Relic Force, and I think Relic Force on a backline solo is really valuable. Sometimes you have backline solos that just kind of do damage, but if you have a character like Cupid that kind of incentivizes beads, and then you get characters that incentivize Aegis, like Tsukiyomi in the jungle and whatnot, you have a very balanced draft and you actually have decent viability. This character's laning phase because he has a built-in heal. If you go aspect, you have a built-in anti-auto attack slow. If you don't go aspect, you still have pretty good scaling and damage, and your safety is, I would say, like a little underrated. Like, I don't think Cupid's a great god, but I think he's better than you'd think from a safety perspective. Um, in solo, again, in duo, it's a little bit different because there's more contention and more attention. But for a lane that's generally weak sided pretty often, I think Cupid can actually kind of get away with the laning phase pretty frequently, uh, pretty unganked, especially with the Curio system. And he lends himself to me in the A tier. I'm going to try to do this alphabetically. Obviously, like in the order I rank, but I'm trying to rank it in terms of viability. So I'm saying Chaac is the best of these three, Cupid's the worst. But again, this is not like Chaac is 80% better than Cupid. It's within the tiers, so like keep that into mind. And of course, as with every tier list, there are times that it is a fantastic Chaac game and a fantastic Ares game better than another pick. I'm just saying general overall viability, right? Danzaburo. Danza, I'm a huge fan of. I'm going to put in the A tier ahead of. Do I want to put him ahead of Chalk? No, I'm not going to do that. I am really biased towards Danza. I think this character is really good, though, personally. He definitely has some limitations. You build him an intelligence build. He struggles really hard into wall characters in general. Odin, Thor, Ymir can struggle, just because his ult will get blocked so frequently. Some junglers can kind of just kill him as well. But again, you're typically isolated in solo pretty hard. He has fantastic rock value being a hybrid scaler, and his one-shot builds are just incredibly strong. I really recommend giving this pick a shot if you haven't. Obviously, do not go aspect. You have very good built-in sustain. Your scaling, again, is phenomenal. And even though you are obviously losing frontline when you pick a backline solo, and I was talking about Cupid forces a lot of relic burn, I think Danza's very tricky sustain and slow immunity, like kind of his trading patterns are very weird and uncomfortable to play around, brings this pick up. He's a bit niche, but when he works, he's freaking amazing. I really like Danza. Fenrir, C tier. I think this god is garbage by and large in solo. Couple of reasons. So I think the big one is that his cooldown for his ultimate is really long. And when you're picking Fen solo, the idea is that you build tanky Fen with like some type of cooldown to ult people and force speeds. The issue with that is tanky Fen doesn't win lanes. If you build him full power, it's garbage. So you have to build him like an attack speed defense hybrid. And yeah, you don't really win lanes. Like you can if you're better than the person, but like by design, where you're going to be winning matchups, not really. So you're picking a struggling lane character that's going to spawn in behind, not have relevant damage for wave and camp clear together. Maybe you'll have enough for camp clear, but not for wave clear, or vice versa. And your beads burn is just like not good. I don't think this pick is viable. I don't think Fenrir solo is like a thing at all right now. There are times it's better. I don't think right now is that time, especially when solo laners don't feel super unhappy going beads. Uh, Again, you are forcing a relic like a Cupid is, but Cupid has sustained farming. I just don't see it for Fenrir. I really dislike this pick. You're going to see a big theme in this tier list is that faster farmers that are able to sustain pressure, are able to clear the camps, get the totem, the chest camp, the rocks, etc., and build a very natural one-sided 1v1 lead. And if as a character you typically need a lot of help to catch up, that's a big issue. Now I know I put Ares higher, right, much higher, but that's because his overall relic burn team fight value is significantly better than a Cerberus or a Fenrir. so that alone contrasts it, and with how strong it is, it really skews the pick. But I hope that makes sense. Ganesha. So obviously I'm going to be ranking this as aspect because non-aspect Ganesha doesn't really work. I'm going to put this in the B tier. I think Ganesha aspect is obviously incredibly easy to use and probably really unfun to play against by and large. But in terms of actual viability, it's quite weak. The damage is good, but not incredible anymore. The ultimate cooldown, I think, is a little too overblown. It's way too long now at this point. And even if you get kills with the passive and stuff, it really doesn't feel rewarding enough. I'd actually like for this character's aspect to get a little, not really like like rework, but a little change where the kills that he gets actually impacts the ultimate cooldown a little bit more in a sharp way, maybe like a World Stone-esque effect where it doesn't affect other cooldowns, but the ultimate loses like a percentage point of cooldown, rather like you know what I mean, something just to make the cooldown fall sharper. Because you'll get a lot of kills with this guy to build a lot of cooldown, and his ult's just way too long. Laning phases are okay. It kind of really depends. But really, when you pick this guy, you pick it because he's easy and he does a lot of damage. But with his damage being lower, it kind of doesn't make sense. At least he can farm, unlike these C tier picks, but I think you should probably stay away from him. Geb solo, I'm going to put in B tier above Ganesha. He has a good farming opportunity. His clear is okay with like Conduit. It's actually quite good with Conduit. I'm just not a huge fan of this character's pressure and like overall fight. His clear is good, but his fight is bad. And the problem with that is if you're able to clear well into somebody who is able to kind of match your clear and or fight on top of that, you just kind of lose everything and your clear advantage becomes nothing and then you're just kind of AFK. You end up needing really like a bailout in the lane, very similar to like an Ares, but I just think your overall value is lower. Aspect's garbage on this guy, you definitely go base gab, but it's just not really worth consistently picking. You can win with it, probably would avoid it though. Guan Yu, I don't know. This is a bit of a tough one. I mean, he's not good, but how bad is he? Is he worse than Ganesha Aspect? Probably not. Put him in B tier here in the middle. This pick's a bit weird for me to rank. I think his aspect kind of got gutted with healing changes and stuff, and his laning phase kind of sucks, but you do actually have good damage potential if you're in a matchup where you're not getting interrupted super consistently, excuse me, like a Chaac lane. I think you can do decent. I just think there's like Guan Yu is the pinnacle of a warrior with like 20 different better options because his healing utility's down. His healing utility kind of needs to rise for him to find value because right now he's kind of just like a damage dealer solo like tank that doesn't do that as effectively as other picks do. And his like additional prot shred burn is nice, but I don't think meaningful enough to make him worth the pick. The healing is really integral to the god, and if the healing on the god's not good, he's probably not going to be good. Hades. I'm going to put Hades in B tier. I think this character is terrible, but from a solo lane perspective, he is able to clear, farm fast, build blink, and go poly. Like, his laning phase can be a little bit spotty depending on the matchups. In fact, it's honestly quite bad into a lot of frontliners, but into a lot of lower pressure to mid pressure backliners, and gods like the Guan Yu, like the Ganesha, he does very well into. He's also like a very good pick into Nuwa, who's very popular in mid and in solo. So he has like winning matchups. They're just kind of sparse, but when he has a winning lane, his lead he's going to get is incredibly strong, and again, his damage potential is super high. So I think it gives him a bit of value. But Hades is a bit of a weird character because he's always struggling like, do I want to build full damage or do I want to build like semi-hybrid? I think semi-hybrid's kind of useless. I think you have to go full damage, but it just never feels that good. Hercules. This character I would have put in S tier pre this patch, but with the pendulum nerf, same issue with S Cab. He just struggles to find a first item. I think you can go Rune Forged on him first. I think you can go Glad Shield. You could still go Pendulum, but it's just so expensive that it makes your early game feel very tricky. It's very risky, and if you fall behind, you get a gank on you. You lose a blue buff, you're going an axe start, so your mana sustain's going to suck, and it's just going to be a really miserable time. Because this character has so much of an opening where he's just weak, because if you build Pendulum first, you're going to experience that, and if you don't, you're just a weaker character altogether. He feels limited. I say limited, and I'm still putting him in A plus because I think his value is still very high. But again, I'm contrasting from like an S tier pick falling down. So you might hear more negative about certain picks like that. That's because again, I'm speaking of them, excuse me, from the perspective that they're falling. So Herc falling down to A plus. Agni solo, I think really, really good. I think Agni solo is incredibly strong. I'm actually going to put him in A plus. You'll probably never see this pick because he's always picked in ADC because his aspect is the best one in the game, probably. But this character from a solo lane POV is powerful. Knock-up immunity, the fact that he has very, very good like mana usage, so you can always spam abilities. I know that sounds a little bit crazy, but not all backline solos actually have that. Like Aphrodite's one that really struggles quite hard. Even Neith is one that can struggle pretty hard. So the fact they have such good mana usage, you have really good laning phase at level 5 and after, and even before you're incredibly safe, means that this god in isolation is very powerful. Range CC is overpowered, and actually extremely winning in most matchups. I really like this Agni god. Achilles. I'm going to put him in the A tier. I think he is quintessential and being like the average solo laner. His risk reward ratio is kind of low. I feel like he's a little bit riskier than he's worth, but his overall defense, scaling, team fighting is generally quite good. You can go Nemean on him, really, normal, solid at tank active items and feel happy. I think he's definitely a cut below a Cabra or Hercules, but he's definitely like a fine pick, and you can always kind of reliably play him if you really like him. I'm not the biggest Achilles fan. I think he's better in the jungle with the full damage build, but he still is truthfully okay. Aladin solo, I just don't think works. It's sort of like kind of the Ganesha problem in a way, maybe not quite. He can do damage, so he can always clear, but his lanes are really hard. If you're playing into somebody who kind of knows what they're doing, this character just suffers too hard. The combat of the lane is a really big problem for Aladdin, and he just kind of will get beat up, bullied, not be able to farm efficiently. Obviously, the character's kit and whatnot is very bloated, but he gets away with a lot of lanes in the mid lane because he's into Sands of Time mages that kind of just aren't able to interact because of jungle presence, and solo, when it's more isolated, he gets less help. He struggles a lot, and he doesn't. Obviously he's got this great team fight value, but you're not going to be able to go like a war flag on him and scale to 15 and pray like you can on Ares. You really are kind of coffined in that lane. There's high upside, but I think the pick is way too risky to play in solo consistently. Amaterasu is garbage. I think this is the worst god in the game by far. Her solo lane sucks. Her everything sucks. This character's design is terrible. Her ultimate in this game is garbage. Her dash has a like built-in delay that feels like a bug, but I'm not sure if it's a bug. I don't really know what it is. I was like the best Ama solo player, one of the best Amas in the game in Smite 1, and I literally cannot stand this character. It breaks my heart to see one of my favorite gods completely useless, but I mean, it is what it is. Ama's completely doomed. I might do a video on like a full rework concept for Ama in Smite 2 because they've completely bricked this character, unfortunately. On her, I know this is a weird one to see. I'm putting on her in this tier list because he has good self peel. That's going to put him in the B tier. Doesn't have the type of relic burn like a Cupid has, but the self peel for the laning phase actually gives him very niche, decent opportunities to be played. I'm not saying that I would play him all the time, but into very committal tanks like Mulan or even Bellona, or even at times gods like Tsukiyomi, he actually has decent like gameplay, which is very weird. I know I haven't really uploaded this character much, but I'm looking to, so you'll see what I mean hopefully in those games. Apollo, yeah, I mean, I guess he's an A tier as well. I think aspect solo is like not really a thing, so this is just regular ADC Apollo. It definitely isn't what it used to be in solo lane, but his ultimate threat, I think, in the late game to split push or just kind of put pressure on the map is just incredibly valuable. And because the character has so much self peel in the lane, he's able to generally do pretty okay. Obviously, again, it depends on your matchup, but I think the upside of Apollo can be really high, especially in lower ranks, which I'm not really basing this off of, but I think it's somewhat important to acknowledge. But the ult pressure is really a big deal, and again, his lanes, because he's safe in isolation, he'll typically do pretty well. Aphrodite, I'll put in. I see this is a tough one. Is she an A tier or a B tier god? Probably, geez, I don't know. Well, okay, let me think about this. If I was into a Hercules, what would I rather play? A good Herc. Apollo or Afro? Probably Afro, no? That's not a good way to evaluate this. No, I'd probably play Apollo, but I don't think that matters. I want to play for the lane into a Herc. I'm going to put Afro in A tier. I think she's good. She definitely fell off a little bit, but what I like about this character is she uses Blink very well. Her immunity is great. When you play her solo, you can't build her super tanky. You're kind of like running in and blinking in and killing people. It's a very different way to play the god. But it's effective. I mean, she has a ton of damage potential. Her ult resets her 3, so you can kind of do a one-shot scaling Afro. That is incredibly useful in the late game, but its mid game is still fine. The early game laning phase can be a little bit sketchy, but the upsides are very high. And again, she's still quite safe. I think this pick is valuable. It's a little bit more tricky than it used to be because of her lanes being a bit weird, but I think she does pretty good into backline solos and is overall even into the top picks not completely horrible. Like I've played this pick into like Bellona against really good players and it wasn't great, but that's kind of like the hardest lanes you'll typically get on a character. So if you can do well into Bellona or at least okay, I think that's pretty indicative that her laning strength isn't terrible. Anubis, I'm gonna put in the B tier. I think Anubis is markedly worse than a lot of the backline solos because a really simple point. He's just not safe, and a lot of frontliners can kind of just stat check him. It's sort of a big problem. You can go conduit to kind of circumvent it and get an easier lane, but then your scaling's worse. And where you have characters like Aphrodite, right, or even Agni who can go conduit and feel better, that's because they don't need to all in commit. So they can have slightly worse scaling from a build POV and feel okay. I think Anubis solo is just sort of a little bit lacking in terms of like build versus how he ends up being played, and obviously he's just very risky. I know solo is a lane that typically gets low resources in terms of ganks, but this character is so easy to gank that it becomes like a place that gets contested pretty hard. Artemis is another like kind of weird one. Like on her, I think it's pretty niche, but the idea is that you're safer than you'd imagine because your traps are very strong and your ultimate is incredible self-peel. You have very good beads burn. I think the difference between a pick like this and Cupid is that your very early laning phase can be really risky, and the ultimate on this character is not the most consistent. It's definitely better than like a Cupid ult per se, but your laning phase uh, you don't have this like level of sustain. You don't have a straight up dash to just get away. I think this god is very good, but definitely more of an ADC mid pick. She's okay in solo, but by and large, not really one you'd probably be playing a ton. Athena, I'm going to put her in B tier as well. I think Guardian Souls are kind of dead by and large, aside from a couple, and Athena's kind of in that issue. You can build her like Lifebinder and stuff and kind of play the game, but then your autos don't do a lot of damage, which is okay, but I feel like your clear damage is bad, so you want to go like Tritons, but it's so expensive and you're not gaining pressure anyways. So I think she's kind of in a build crisis on actually what to build first, and even if you get that figured out, it's just hard to play. Yes, the idea is you just consistently ult over somewhere else, but the ult cooldown's very long. You lose a lot of farm for doing that into high damage picks or just really normal meta picks. And yeah, it's a bit of a disaster. I think she's a bit rough. Bacchus, A+. Pretty easy. Aspect is good pressure, good damage, and knock-up immunity on this god. Magical damage in solo is usually pretty valuable because magic defense items tend to be a bit weak. And what Bacchus makes up for in a lot of these Guardians is that he actually has good clear, so it helps him a lot. Baron, another A+, pretty easy pick to do. I'm going to put him above Hercules. Lifebinder is incredibly overpowered. Probably just saw my Baron video, and he utilizes it better than almost every god in the game. Tank builds on him actually feel good with aspect, and your damage is good, you're tanky, your laning phase is good, you're fairly safe, and you translate fantastically well to team fights. A really good pick. Bellona, first S tier of the list. I think this is the best solo in the game. Pressure's incredible. Laning phase, obviously an extension of that. Team fight's very easy and strong. All in is awesome, and yeah, the laning phase and the pick and everything is just kind of really good. There's not really a lot of shortcomings of this pick right now. Mulan, I'll put in A tier probably. I think she's very similar to like the Achilles and Chaacs of the world, where there is like, well, not so much Chalk, but more so Achilles. There's a lot of reward, but there is a lot of risk. She is still like a semi-unsafe warrior. I think the banner buffs again have really helped the character, but you have to be worried about the idea that yes, like if my laning phase starts to slip up a little bit or something, I'm very hook reliant. I need to hit my hook. If I'm missing that, I'm screwed, and I have very short range. So if the game goes ultra late to like 3Ks +1, +2, +3, I'm really screwed because my scaling is garbage. So you're kind of on a bit of a timer, which usually isn't a huge issue. But when you pair the fact that she's already kind of unsafe, it makes her average, I don't think, incredible. Hoi Yi, probably a weird one to see. I'm putting this sheerly because this character is incredibly ridiculously safe. His ultimate's overpowered. Therefore, he can work in every role. Kind of unfortunate, but is what it is. Hunbats. Yeah, he's bad. RIP, dude. Stunbat sucks. I wish it didn't. He kind of just got scammed. Pendulum was what you had to rush on this god to make his laning phase playable, where Pendulum was what you rush on other gods to make them broken. I don't know how to make this character work right now in solo. I want to. I like him a lot. He's really fun. But yeah, the nerfs to Stunbats makes his damage awful. You max the 3 first as a way to circumvent it, but then you can't lane anyways because everyone just goes axe and you can't go axe on bats because then you can't clear anything even with the 3 max. It's just dreadful. You have to go bluestone. You lose every lane. Yeah, I wish there was a way to make this character work. I just don't think right now is the time. Giannis. Giannis I'll put in the B tier. I think his damage is just quite inconsistent. That's kind of the issue I've always had with Giannis. I mean, yeah, you have a lot of utility and movement and stuff, but can you really lane? No, so you end up running around a lot and farming. Is that valuable? Yeah, but you're not actually like creating presence in a lot of fights in the mid game, so I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of Giannis personally. I kind of think this guy is pretty overrated. Jing Wei. Yeah, pretty gross that I have to do this, but this guy's just overpowered, so we're gonna put her in A+. Very simple. This card would be played a ton if she wasn't the best ADC in the game, right? If the character's OP, it transcends roles sometimes, and Jingwei's a great example. Super safe, high pressure. There's no reason those two things should ever be in the same combo, and unfortunately, it is seeping to solo. I might be one of the big proponents of it, but yeah, God's really good. Yorm. Yorm I'm going to put at the top of A tier. I think the character is good post buffs. He's not incredibly strong, but he's good. His laning phase is incredibly powerful. He wins almost every early game in solo lane, but I think his scaling is kind of wonky, and that's sort of a big problem. When I say scaling being wonky, like his 1 doesn't scale off strength. You're scaling on either health or strength, so like which are you choosing? You're probably going to choose health, but then I don't know. It's just like kind of messy. Like Yurm's always kind of been a guardian that wants to like not build like a guardian, build more like a mage, but that type of build doesn't really work on the god that well in this game. So he ends up just being very like weird build wise, and I think kind of unfavorable to play. But because his laning phase is so strong, I think he's automatically like a good pick overall. Cuckoo. I think Cuckoo's like an A tier mage. I think he's one of the better backline solos in the game, if not like the most consistent that you can actually get, because again, Jing and Agni should be banned. His scaling is incredibly strong. He's quite safe. Overall, just like a really good pick that I'm obviously a big fan of. Loki. So this is going to be, I guess, talking about both. I think Aspects Loki is fine. I don't know how good I would say it is. I don't have like enough data. I think regular Loki is like unusable in solo. Aspect Loki though seems to be okay. It seems like he kind of lacks like a consistent presence in lane, kind of similar to the like the Cerberuses and stuff of the world, but I think he has probably more viability within a tankiness. So yeah, I'm gonna put him at the top of B tier. This is kind of a needs more data thing. I don't think he's incredible. I don't think he's like horrible. Again, this is with Aspect. I think non-Aspect Loki is like C tier, just trash. It's kind of like the Hunbats issue. Except you can do damage, but you just lose every fight, so not good. Merlin, I'll put him in probably A tier as well. This is kind of like just him being carried by being such a strong character. He has a lot of range, a lot of safety in his kit. He is a little bit of a difficult character in terms of like maximizing his autos, but his damage is really good. He uses poly in the laning phase very well. I think it makes the character playable. Mordred is, to me, an A tier pick right now. I don't think he's incredibly strong in solo. I think his laning phase is definitely taking a lot of steps back due to like Bluestone not being really the thing to go, so you have to go Axe. I'm not really sure the Devo slash build is that good on him anymore, and his scaling kind of isn't the best. Also, like another character like Osiris being added, I feel like just brings him down a little bit because OC builds items better than he does. So it's just like another solo that got better and kind of pushed him down. Overall, I mean, the pick is okay. I think he does well into a lot of backline solos, and he's very much like a skill check character. I feel like I probably play him more than most people, so sometimes I maybe get like an inflated opinion of the pick, but I do think he's probably just like good, but not amazing. I'm going to put him like above Chalk, maybe. Yeah. Poseidon, another A tier pick. This one to me is a pressure machine, which is really nice, but I don't know. I kind of hate a lack of CC immunity in an ultimate, and I think he doesn't have like a super great escape. Obviously, he's just got movement speed. That's not going to fly, I think, super consistently into more organized comps. And I kind of just look at Pos Solo as like a very cheese early pressure thing that kind of fades into obscurity if it doesn't get a good start. But if it does, it kind of just like 1v9s the game. So it's kind of hard to tell sometimes. Neith. I like Neith a lot. I think Neith is probably the best backline solo in the game. Again, that you can get. I was saying that for Cuckoo, but I kind of forgot about this pick. I think Neith's really good. I like Neith a ton. And yeah, I think just her safety, combo pressure, damage is really good. I just really enjoy this pick. I think she's super underplayed in solo. Nemesis. Yeah, Nem I'm going to put in the probably bottom side of A tier. I think Aspect Nem is probably still the way to go. But just lost a lot of value. You build a tank build with like Golden Blade, you'll be okay, but I don't think you'll be incredibly strong. I don't think she's quite a B tier. She still works consistently, but she just doesn't have the S tier upside she used to have. Nuwa, to me, is another A tier. I think she's a very average, definitely much better in mid, a little bit too exploitable on the side lanes, but overall still like a decent pick. Does have like a lot of damage potential. Her carry potential is very high, I guess, just with ult, so I'll put her a bit higher, probably right below Afro. I'll put Afro above Cupid. But yeah, overall, just like fine. A lot of these backliners I think are just like good, high pressure, but semi-risky one way or another. Odin. Odin's going to go into the S tier. This character you won't see a ton in ranked because he's boring, but the simple fact of forcing a relic consistently is a big deal. Therefore, the character has to be really good because his landing phase is good. He's a tank, he can engage, and he forces shell, and he has an anti-heal cage. All those things combined is just like from a higher tier perspective, incredibly consistent and powerful, and in a role that favors consistency, I think that's really important. Um, I think there is something to be said that his pressure is a little bit lower than some of these other top picks, and that's fair. But where Odin, I think, really succeeds is that he liked going like a pendulum build or something, but he's got a lot of good items on him. You can rush Glad Shield on Odin and be very happy. I don't think you can do that on a lot of other picks. So overall, I like this god a ton. Osiris, we're going to put in the A plus tier. I'm going to put him right below Baron, I think. I think this character is good. There is a lot of aspect discussion, and I've tried some of it with like a new kind of tank build, and that felt much, much better than the full damage build, so I was kind of just wrong on that. I'll get a video on that out soon. The aspect, though, seems a little bit bugged, and I think the bugs might be making it actually more strong than it's supposed to be. So I'm kind of trying to base this more off of base Osiris. And yeah, he's strong. I think he's good. The scaling with the prots really have helped the character do relevant damage late game. His laning phase is generally pretty good. I don't think he's necessarily as applicable from a early to mid game perspective as he was in Smite 1 in terms of like really locking down a lane because the lane is physically more open and people can kind of just scale more freely against him. But overall, I think the pick is very strong. I think he's a good character. I think he's one you should be playing. and I look forward to playing him more. I like this pick a ton. I really do think he's quite strong. Pele, I think, is completely dead. Yeah. Yeah, she sucks. Problem is, Aspect is just useless now. You build her full damage. It's so risky. These, like, strong... It's kind of like the Loki issue. Uh, for full damage Loki, it just doesn't work. Bari. I'll put her in B tier. I think she's okay. She's so risky. It's a very Anubis-esque to me. She is so risky to play. And if you hit your dash, you have a chance to like fry. If you don't, you're screwed. And even if you do, you're so gankable. So do you max your dash? No. So you're playing off bells. That's not so great. I don't know. I think this pick kind of is just in a weird spot in this game right now, especially in solo. Raw Aspect, in my opinion, is horrid. I think full damage solo Ra is decent, so I'm going to put in B tier, but I think Aspect Ra is like complete doo-doo garbage, and I would not play it. Scylla, I'm going to put her in A tier. This is for Aspect Scylla. Primarily, this pick is much better in support, but in solo lane I think is pretty decent. Does the same thing, but you apply the stacks and pressure a lot slower, but eventually you're still viable. I think the pick is fine, not incredible, but I think the pick is like generally fine and probably underplayed because it's always picked in support. Sobek is completely unplayable in solo. He is. I should put him above Fen. I think I was better than Fen, but and probably Serb and Sobek. Yeah, she's better than these gods for sure. Sorry, I hate the god, but she's better than those. Yeah, Sobek sucks. You cannot play this character anymore. Anti-heal being reduced on his 3 plus anti-heal not existing as an item means that Sobek, who is traditionally a let me poke you and fight you so you can't outclear me character, simply hits you, you take 0 damage, and then he's down 4,000 gold. This god is atrocious in solo. Characters like the Sobek, like the Cerberus, like, you know, further in future installments of Guardians and stuff are why we need things like anti-heal in the game because uh, you know, they can't do anything. They're just outclassed by the game. It makes no sense. It's stupid. I hate it. But yeah, these gods suck. Soul. A tier. Super pressure machine. I think very similar to... Also, I should put Nem up, by the way, a little bit. This was a bit low. I think Soul is very much like Poseidon, where you have good pressure, very risky, less safe than Pos, in some ways safer with immunity in others. I think she is kind of like the exact same thing, honestly. To me, they're pretty similar. Wukong, going into the S tier, this int build won't get nerfed. It's incredibly easy to play, incredibly strong in the laning phase. After like level 6, and then beyond that point, it just gets really powerful. If you're a bit worried about in Wukong for a draft POV because you need frontline, tank Wukong is really good. So the ability to have that much variance on a character as you load into the game is really second to none in terms of how you want to and can play it. And it just makes your character a really big problem. I think this character's component is definitely the more problematic part. You don't see it as much in competitive play because it is worse in competitive play, but from a ranked POV where there's less comms, less synergy on you know, like where people are and stuff, this pick is just miserable. And generally, like even in like higher levels of play, this pick just boost so many players. I genuinely think a lot of the reason why you have some really bad players in high ranks is because they play in Wukong a ton and climb up a ton, and then Wukong gets banned a lot now, and then, you know, it's just completely doomed. So it really needs some drastic nerfs, I think. Susano solo is not a thing. He has like some fight, so I'm gonna put him like by Aladdin, but he gets outstatted. It's just the assassin solo issue in solo. They just kind of get outstatted. There's really not too much to it. He's a fun pick, but definitely just better in jungle. Some of his jungle nerfs also hurt him though, obviously in solo. Thanatos, similar issue, just gets outstatted. These picks are fine, they're fun, but there's no reason to play them in solo when you can play them in jungle. The Morrigan, I'm gonna put an A tier. I think Mori solo kind of got killed, which I'm happy about, by the way. I'm not going to pretend I'm sad about, but with Totem losing value, she was very Totem like greedy because you would get all the added cooldown rate, which helped your character build a ton with the rocks scaling off of like boss health, so her passive doesn't apply very well to it. Her rock clear is actually pretty risky, with their aspect getting nerfed as well. And the fact that level 1 Mori typically used to start lane and build a huge advantage at level 1. She can't really do that anymore because the solo just starts blue and then will catch the whole wave. Means that this character who really relied on gaming the system, can't really do that. So then she just becomes a traditional like backliner. And her value there is still very strong, but I think it is a market step down from what it used to be. And she actually can just kind of get stat checked in the early game. Her ultimate value is still incredibly high. There still is S tier upside on this character, but you can't just blind pick it and assume instant laning phase victory like you used to be able to. So still a good pick, but not incredible anymore. Thor, we're going to put in the S tier. I think this character's value from a team fighting POV is really second to none. He's very similar to Odin. He forces relics, very consistent. Laning phase can be a little bit weak, but you make up for it in the strength of range CC with the wall. It's almost like Agni in that front, but really good dive, really good damage sustain with the aspect. Obviously, this is aspect Thor, and this pick is just awesome. I think I've talked about this god way too much in way too many videos. Tsukiyomi, we're going to put in the A+ tier. I think this character's laning phase is incredibly strong. And building like a more damage skewed build is the way to go. I feel like he does fall off a little bit harder than he did in Smite 1, even with 3Ks in the game. So I'm not going to say this pick is incredibly good because like pre 3K pots, but like by near full build in solo lane, he can just be a little bit weak. I think the one relic system he benefits from, but also hurts from a ton. And yeah, he can kind of just die. That's sort of the issue, but his damage is really good. His landing phase can be really powerful. I like him into a lot of picks. I think he's really good, for example, into Bellona. I think he's quite good into a Hercules, quite good into a Sun Wukong. Overall, a really solid pick, but I think just a shred bit more inconsistent, and that does hurt him. Uller, I'm going to put in the A tier. Very simple burst hunter. That's always valuable and you get consistent damage out of him. Long range poke I really like. Overall, I think he's a pretty complete package in ADC as a solo laner, but you are, factoring in that you have less objective damage than other backline picks. That doesn't mean he's bad, it just means he's a bit different. Vulcan, realistically, I think he's an A tier. It's kind of meme that I have a very low win rate on this god, but I do think he's fine. Just kind of a bit of a lane bully that doesn't always scale super well. You can do more damagey builds that are honestly I haven't really tried them too much, but the more damagey Vulcan solo builds in my experience seem to be very inconsistent. Like sometimes they do great, sometimes they do terrible. I think this god generally is probably better as a tank, in which he's fine. As long as you don't into him in the laning phase, he probably can't carry. If you do, he tends to carry. Xbalanque, I'll put him in B+, or just B tier. I guess there's no B+, but top of B tier. I think he's okay in solo. His aspect nerfs really hurt him. That was the way I think he should have played him, and now that they're a lot worse, he's kind of just an ult bot, which isn't the worst, but a little bit unremarkable, I think. Yemoja solo, I really enjoy it. I don't think it's good, though. Damage ammo is super inconsistent, but the upside is really high, I guess. So if you're able to get like an easy early lane, you can do a lot of damage. If you can't, you're screwed. I think she's kind of B tier just because she can at least do damage. I think Ymir solo is fine. I'm going to put in A tier. Kind of similar to Ares, but you actually have quite good laning pressures, so you're not completely lost off minute 1. And Zeus will put at the top of B tier, just very unsafe, kind of like a Bari-esque issue. Overall, a fine pick. But this is the overall solo lane tier list. Do I want to change anything really quick? I'd probably move Cab down. I don't think Cab's quite this high. Yeah, I'd put Cab like right here, probably. I'd put Bacchus also down a bit. This looks a little bit better. I probably will move Jing here. Yeah, this looks good to me. And yeah, I think besides that, we're all set. So let me know what you guys think. I hope you guys enjoy it. And yeah, I'll see you soon. Peace, peace.